All right, first off, good morning. Um, so, those of you who know, I do have parents, mostly moms, who come to me and ask information regarding parenting, child development, stuff like that. Because I don't just teach firearms, I also specialize in child development and parenting. I'm an instructor in that space. So, this one mom comes to me and she tells me about her 13-year-old daughter receiving something from someone in her inbox that was inappropriate, and daughter is engaging in behavior with this person. And I'll just leave it there. And so she was talking to me, and I always let my students know, I'm not going to criticize you, because criticism is never constructive, because by definition, you're blaming someone for their mistakes. And mistake by definition means an action or a judgment that is simply wrong or misguided, right? And so you don't criticize someone making a mistake when they were misguided. That's not right. And so, but you can judge, which means to form a conclusion or an opinion. So mom sits here and is talking to me as though she's talking to her daughter, which happens, right? It's a form of projection, but you need that to really hear how she would be talking to her daughter, or how a parent would be talking to their child. And yes, it could be things that you've said to them, but it can also be things you haven't said to them, but you really want to, right? So as I'm listening to her talk to her daughter as she's talking to me, I then say, Mom, I'm going to say some things you're not going to like, or you may not like, I don't know. And I want you to know it's not your fault. It's what you're taught. It's not your fault. It's what you were taught. Let me increase this pace. All right. Good, there we go. It's not your fault. It's what you were taught, okay? Say it. It's not my fault. It's what I was taught. It's not my fault. It's what I was taught. You say it. It's not my fault. It's what I was taught, right? Okay. And what do I mean? It's not your fault. It's what you were taught. We as humans are the collections of 5 things, according to the theory of constructivism: needs, experiences, motivations, habits, and education. I'll say it again. Needs, experiences, motivations, habits, and education. Right. Education, depending upon what your microsystem is, Yuri von Brenner's ecological systems theory, depending upon what your microsystem is and their relationship with not only having education, but teaching it in developmentally appropriate ways based on the various stages of development that you're at as a child and a growing human being. There's a lot of things they might have said they've given you, but life later shows you did not get. But they did teach you how to beat up on yourself for what society and culture and family expects you to know how to do that you were never taught how to do. So that's why the affirmation, it's not my fault, it's what I was taught, fits. Because it's not your fault. Don't get me wrong. You made the choice. You did the thing. But it's not your fault, because you mirrored the performance of those who came before you and who showed you that this is what they did or will do or have done in that situation, right? So I just wanted to explain it's not your fault. It's what you were taught. Now, no, some of you may push back and say, well, that's not being accountable. That's not being responsible. But I ask you this, spell accountability without the word count. What do you get? Spell the word responsibility without the word respond. Let that sit. Count and respond are skills. So let's get back to it. Right. So I said, if I were your daughter, I wouldn't want to talk to you either. Not the way you talking to me. She said, well, I understand that. And I got the same talking to from my mom. I said, do you notice the pattern of language that you're repeating with your daughter? Harvard Center for the Developing Child. When a child or a person, and this is mostly context dependent, but it still has universal applications. When they feel afraid, they're not listening because their brain put them in survival mode. They're surviving. And so FBI veteran hostage negotiator Chris Voss even said it better. The yes that they're giving you is a counterfeit yes. It's a counterfeit yes based on survival. They're telling you yes so that you can stop being around them, so they can survive, so they can feel whole, safe, and so they can survive. So the yes that you're getting is a compliance yes. They really may not understand what they're doing, what they've done, recognize any patterns. It's just yes, comply, and that's that. You see what I'm saying? And so we get back to her. Alfred Adler said emotions are tools that help us get to a place, a goal, a destination. Emotions are not facts under the theory of constructed emotion by Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett. And so we look at these emotions. We look at this behavior. Well, Mike, she wasn't in an emotion. She was behaving. But I submit to you this. Motivation, right? The biological, social, emotional, and cognitive force that activates behavior. I'll say it again. See, people talk choice, and they easily ignore that choices have motivation. The biological, emotional, social, and cognitive force that activates that choice, activates that behavior. When we look at John Dewey and John Bowlby's attachment theory, right? All humans will seek attachment. It's inevitable, it's unavoidable. And so it's hard for a child who is seeking attachment to attach to an adult who is also seeking attachment. If you're seeking attachment in your child or to your child, and your child is trying to seek attachment to you, it's not the child's job to love you. It's your job to love and care and nurture for the child. It's your job to understand the developmental stage that the child is at. It's not for the child to understand what stage you're at for the purposes of making you feel good. It's your child's job to evaluate where you are in your ability to see their need, meet their need, and understand their various stages of development. including the ones you don't like. Mm-hmm. But can you not like them and still hold them, still help them navigate? Not if you're insecure. Mm-hmm. And when you hear that word insecure, how does it make you feel? How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel less than? Does it make you feel worthless? It shouldn't. But if in your culture they frame the word insecurity as an attachment of worth, then you could feel attacked by that very word. How many people are attacked by the word insecure? Mm-hmm. So let's continue. So the conversation continues, and I try to help Mom understand. She said, well, it isn't as though she didn't have her dad there. She says, it isn't as though her mom wasn't there. She says, Mom and Dad were there. Mom and Dad were there. Mom and Dad were there. You know? And she says, she didn't have a situation where she didn't have two parents. Where she didn't have two parents. She had a situation where both parents were there. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean to you? She said, well, I always taught my daughter that if you have an issue, you could come to me and talk to me about anything. You could come to me and talk to me about anything. And I'm like, thinking from a child's mindset, what does that mean? What does that mean? So just imagine you took your child to a daycare or early learning center, and the daycare teacher or early learning teacher said, you know, for your preschooler, by the way, your preschooler, okay? Just think about what stage of development they are according to Erik Erikson's psychosocial theory of development. Trust versus mistrust, right? Autonomy versus shame and doubt. Initiative versus guilt, right? That may be where they're at. And that depends on Yuri Bronfenbrenner's microsystem. That depends on Lev Vygotsky's zone of proximal development and more knowledgeable others. That depends on Mary Ainsworth's strange situation, right? That depends on John Bowlby's and John Dewey's attachment, right? That depends on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Physiological needs, safety needs, love and belonging, esteem needs, and self-actualization. That depends on Albert Bandura, social learning theory, right? It depends on Freud's theory. How were they in the oral phase? How were they in the anal phase, right? That depends on a variety of different theories, right? That talk about where your child should be, depending upon what they've been exposed to, the education they received early and often, right? And that's just at home before they get to preschool, the first 3 years, right? Or 3 to 5 years. So if you look at that, right? Well, all they had me and their mom, their dad. Okay, let's look at it. I want you to take a sheet of paper in your mind, and I want you to draw a line in the middle, in half. On one side, Home Academy. On the other side, Life Academy. On one side, Home Academy. On the other side, Life Academy. Here we go. How many teachers do they have? That's at the title, the very top. How many teachers do they have? I want you to write that at the top. So you should have a sheet of paper. Down the middle is a line, a dividing line between two sides, right? One title, Home Academy. The other title, Life Academy. And on top of that, how many teachers do they have? You can say, do they have? Will they have? Did they have? Right? So if you look at preschool, about ages 0 to 5, 1 to 3, ages 1 to 3, early childhood, infant, toddler, preschool, right? And then elementary, right? So they had 1 to 3 teachers in early childhood education, right? In elementary school, kindergarten to grades 5, you got 1 main teacher per grade. So you got 6 total. And then you might have an art teacher, a music teacher, PE rotations. So that's about around 3 plus or minus. So that's 9 teachers, right? So where are we at? 9 plus about 3, you're probably around 12, right? Then you've got middle school, 6 to 8, grade 6 through 8. About 5 to 7 subject teachers per year, okay, times 3 years. So that's about roughly 18 to 21 teachers, right? So we can say about 20. High school, grades 9 through 12. Now this should be in Work Academy because that's essentially what the public school system is. Socializes your child for work. Socializes them for work. So high school, you're looking at 6 to 8 subject teachers per year times 4 years. So that's about 24 to 32 teachers, right? About 28. So a conservative estimate, about 35 to 45 teachers. Now, let's get realistic. We didn't count the janitors. We didn't count the security officers. We didn't count the guidance counselors. We didn't count the department chairs. We didn't count the assistant principals. We didn't count the principals. So if we're counting all of them from 0 to about 18, you're looking at anywhere between 65 to 100 teachers. 65 to 100 teachers. Yet, for Life Academy, they only had you, Dad, maybe. Oh, and hear this. At least the 35 to 45 teachers went to school to learn that subject matter. Now, in fairness, a lot of teachers know the content, but they don't know the audience. They know the content, but they don't know the audience. Sue Bredekamp. If you look up Sue Bredekamp, she is a teacher, professor, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. She's big in that space. We call it NACE. And she's written a lot of early childhood education books. She even said it herself. She got her bachelor's in English, but then when she went to go work at a daycare, it was a shock because she didn't know how to teach children. It was so much of a shock that day, she had a decision to make. She could leave. She had the autonomy. She had the agency to do it. But those children couldn't leave. Those children had to stay. So she decided to stay. And with her bachelor's in English, she went back to learn about early childhood education and got her doctorate in it. And now she inspires the world, teaching them about children, teaching future preschool teachers and others about child development. Kind of a similar story with me as a failed husband and father. Not failed because I'm a failure, I'm not, but failed because my family historically did not have the knowledge, skill, ability, competence, confidence, and capacity to teach me about early childhood education, human growth and development, family and consumer sciences, family law, and other topics that would help me be prepared for the vocational profession of fatherhood. So I failed because I was set up for failure. I didn't want that anymore. So I went to go learn. And boy, did I learn. My professional development resume is stacked with early childhood education. In fact, I'm working on my education specialist degree, which is a postmaster or postgraduate degree in early childhood education. Even though I have a master's in criminal justice. Why? Because the best criminal justice are the investments that you make in children at an early age. So let's get back to it. At least those 35 to 45 people, sorry if you just moved, 35 to 45 people, at least they specialize in the content, and some, if not half, if not most of them, specialize in children. And that's Work Academy. So for Life Academy, at home, mom, be honest with yourself without shaming yourself. Do you specialize in early childhood education, human growth and development? Just because you had kids doesn't mean you understand them. That is one of the critiques that I have when I hear daycare teachers, ECE teachers, ECE professors say parents are experts of their children. No, they're not. You could tell me what you've seen them do, right? You could tell me how you've heard them talk. You could tell me about your experience. You maybe even tell me about their needs. But once I start getting into a conversation regarding development, learning styles, understanding where they are and where they are likely to go as children, analyzing your environment, it's almost like it's new information to you. When it's not new, it's been there. Your family just didn't teach you it or teach you how to find it. So you think you know your child. I can prove to you don't. And don't take it personal. The minute you start taking things personal, I now know that you had your children to define you. You had your children to try to find yourself. And that's one of the worst things you can do to yourself and to a child. Because a child developing in a home that doesn't understand that child, you're going to piss that parent off. The child's going to grow up in survival mode. They're never allowed to gain agency. They're never allowed to gain true autonomy. Yeah, those things. So I'm saying all that to say this. 65 to 100 teachers for Work Academy versus you, their father, grandmother, grandfather, aunt, uncle, cousin. Take 65 to 100 away, or take this away from 65 to 100 over the course of 18 years, and then analyze the history, the habits, the outcomes, the lifestyle, the education, the experiences of each person on your mother's side of the family and on your father's side of the family. On his mother's side of the family, his father's side of the family. Respectfully, trigger warning. Ignorant means, in the dictionary, you generally don't know. And so, if the family tree is a tree of inherited ignorance, what does that child really know? What has been your history with relationships? If your history with relationships have not been the best, and you have not been taught about relationships and how they form, then you don't have a positive relationship with your child. You don't have a positive relationship with Vygotsky and more knowledgeable others. You have not built a team around yourself and help your child establish their own team for their life and what they're about to go through. You are hyper independent, which is not good for life. There are a lot of things that you can do by yourself, but then there are some things that you don't need to do by yourself. And they can't learn true independence and agency as long as they're living in your shell. You're trying to protect them from what you don't control. This mom who had her daughter, who had things inboxed to her, it would have never happened if daughter didn't have social media. And daughter would not need to have social media if mom, dad, and the village were teachers and had developmentally appropriate things to teach their child. Malcolm X said it best, and I'm paraphrasing. You're relying on your alleged or actual oppressor to educate your children. And then you complain when they don't, or when they educate them just for society, just for work, but they don't educate them for life. Your life is not the responsibility of the government. Your life is your responsibility. Yes, you didn't get it, but you can go get it so you can give it. I'll say it again. Yes, you did not get it, but you can go get it so that you can give it. Now, I end on this. Mom, Dad, I want you to see yourself as the principal of Life Academy. The principal of Life Academy. The principal of a school does not get upset if the matter at hand that the child needs to achieve in is a subject they don't know. They don't truly understand. They haven't mastered. They have no problem hiring Miss Oglesby, Mr. Smith, Mr. Johnson, Miss Sklerowitz. They have no problem hiring them who are specialists in that subject matter. Why? Because only the principal is responsible for all the children. But the principal knows, one, I don't have time to teach all the classes. Two, I'm not even qualified to teach all these classes. But three, I know these kids need to know. Four, I know there are people smarter than me, more intelligent than me. I don't take it personal. I just hire them and have people evaluate them and the progress. And I hold them to account because I know they're able to count, to account, to be accountable in exercising accountability. I can respond to when they don't do what they're supposed to do because I know they're able to respond, to exercise their assumed responsibility with applied responsibility skills. I know they're able to do. Does that make sense? I know they're able to do. And so you don't get to tell me you can't do unless it's a capacity issue, that your capacity has changed. Now we can talk because I know you're knowledgeable. I know you're skilled. I know you're able. I know you're confident. I know you're competent. but capacity can change. And if the capacity changes, then I know that I may have to get somebody else, or I may have to have someone else. See, I don't wait until they go down to replace them. I have other teachers ready for substituting. And this is in theory, because the reality could be different. But I know these kids need to learn, and I need to have substitutes in that village. Now, if the school system can do that, why can't you? You don't have to be the teacher, but you are the principal as a parent. I'll say it again. You don't have to be the teacher, but you are the principal as a parent. Your job is to assemble more knowledgeable others while your children are in their zone of proximal development, when they're at the height of their neuroplasticity, when they still want to learn. Because when you come to me, like mom did, when her daughter is a teenager, you may not understand. Her daughter and that teenager is in the identity versus role confusion stage. She ain't trying to listen to a lot of adults. She's practicing whatever you gave and did not give her. You've lost a percentage of your influence. And then talking to your child the way you talk to me, I can see why she doesn't listen to you. First of all, she may have known that you're ignorant. Kids pick up on that quick. Secondly, you're ignorant and ignorant to child development. Third, you're ignorant and you're rude. Why would I talk to you? Why would I talk to you? You're ignorant and rude. Let me go talk to my friends. Because even if they don't know just yet, at least they can relate to where I am. Because they are there too. And that's why your child don't listen to you. Now you want to whoop them to try to maintain control. That's one of the worst things you could do. And so, once I got through with all this stuff, and I learned by mom's reactions that she wanted someone to agree with her. And unfortunately, most black men are agreeable because when they haven't been taught things about a child's development, they agree with the woman because it's a pattern of behavior in agreeing with mom to survive. So they don't have the information to be able to respectively reflect and push back on how wrong those perspectives were. But I wasn't going to agree unless it was developmentally appropriate and developmentally right. So I had to discontinue with mom because you know how some people want that power and control over their children because everything else in their life is gone array. And so they need to control their children and they need someone to validate that control. I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to do it. So my 5K is done. I finished it. Let me show you. Sorry. All right. I hope you got something out of this. I know I had fun talking to you. I hope the video's clear. I hope I can still hear all of it. I'm gonna listen to it before I post it. This was fun. It's fun talking to y'all while I run. All right, y'all. It's Instructor Mike. You've been trained. I'll see you on the next run. Peace.